the details of the menus in Stellaris, and I thought that it was quite a good idea to do. So I've decided to pop into a game that we have live at the moment. This is a multiplayer game that I've ran previously with some of the people on the channel. But I thought that because it's quite late on in the game, it will give some better examples of just what each of the screens actually do. So we're going to go through each of the menus at the top section up here today, just explaining what each of them are and how they are used. And I hope that this will help people out when it comes to actually trying to learn the game in the early stages. Just getting an idea of how these screens will actually be used late game, and the sort of content that you can find in each of them should hopefully help people to become a bit quicker at the game, a bit more, and understand some of the advanced tactics and things that can be used from them. But as I say, we'll be doing the basics of each of these screens and just how they are going to help you to understand the game and move forward from there. So the first one that we're going to look at here is the government tab. The government tab is used to show what your actual government is. Now you would set this up in the early stages before the game actually begins. You would create a race, and that race is basically going to be shown on this page. Now you will have 2 civics. Civics are effectively kind of traits that are attached to your government, and they are made at creation. You will also have the ethics of your race, which are set up here. Again, you choose these at the beginning. I will try and do a video on race creation later on to help out. I think it's a very personal thing, but getting some ideas on ways that you could set up some races might help people if they are really struggling with this game. This screen effectively just shows what your traits are for your ruler. Your ruler you won't actually choose at creation. It is normally randomized, but you can have elections to bring in other rulers. But in the case of this person that we have, this will give these bonuses to the entire civilization that takes place around the universe. So your entire government will have these bonuses. In this case, Warlike will give bonuses to weapon damage and army damage, and you have Fleet Organizer here with a +30 naval capacity. Now it depends on the government types that you have chosen to begin with. It might be that you are able to, every 5 years or so, you'll be able to have an election to choose a new ruler. It might be every 30 to 40 years. Or it could be only when a ruler dies you might elect someone else, or it might be that you actually have no control over that whatsoever. That is the 4 types of government that you can have to begin with. I believe that you can change them in here. Yes, you can. Actually, there is a 5th, which is Hive Mind, but that is exclusive and it sits separately, and also is only available within the Utopia DLC. So everyone might not be able to use that to begin with. Anyway, this screen, so it shows who the ruler is currently, and it can also show just here who the heir is going to be in the case of, if we click down here, the Imperial Government. The Imperial Government, you will never have control over who is actually going to be in charge of your race. But you will be able to see the heir in there, and you'll be able to see the heir's traits. Now there's no way to actually kill an heir. It just shows you what is going to be happening in the future. So yeah, I can't show you this unfortunately during this video, but possibly I can do that at another time. Let's have a look around the rest of this page before we go forwards here. So your governing ethics are the ethics that you've actually chosen during the creation. These can be changed later on, but you'll be able to find that in other tabs, which we'll get into soon. It basically shows the type of government that you're going to be running, so an authoritarian or a libertarian government, for example, a xenophobe or a xenophile, militarist or pacifist, or materialist or spiritualist. And these obviously combine together to give various different bonuses. In the case of this race that we're playing at the moment, they are a fanatic xenophobe, which you can see here can allow purging and displacement of aliens. You can enslave other aliens, decreased opinion of other species, just because they know that you are a horrible person. Cannot give aliens full citizenship, cannot allow aliens full military service, and cannot use refugees welcome species policy, which we will get into later. That is in another of these tabs. As I said earlier, your civics are again made at creation. Now these can actually be changed at other points through this reform government button, but I'll get to that in a second. These civics do various things. In this case, farms will produce unity. Now unity is used to upgrade your traditions, which I will get into soon. Again, that's in another tab, and is something that was added in recently within the newest patch to the game. Moving onwards from there, inward perfection. This is actually why I chose this race to be the way that it is. You have to be a xenophobe and a pacifist of some type to be able to use this civic. It produces extra unity, and citizen happiness is higher. And then you can normally only choose 2 of these at creation, but the third one can be unlocked through research. I will show you the research screens soon enough. And in this case, consumer goods are cheapened so that you effectively you lose less in upkeep of minerals each month. Okay, so down the right hand side of this screen you can see that we've got modifiers here. Now these have basically been unlocked through play and various different choices that I've made during the game. In this case, excluding Elixir of Life, hard to speak, is a plus 20 lifespan, plus 20 years lifespan, sorry, for the races that we have, or for the leaders, any leaders that exist within the government. Cloudbuster is increased damage. Cosmic Ray Catalysis. Wow. Plus 5% energy credits. And then we have an agenda, which is national purity. Now this agenda is defined by the governor for the species. And if you have various different choices of a governor, then you might be able to influence someone else to take over the government at that time, and these agendas are one of the things that you are looking for when moving forwards. You can see here that this particular person is interested in purity, so does not want aliens within the confines of the government or the species, or civilization. So we'll try and push them out. Tile influence output is also increased as a result of that, which is useful. Okay, so this is the government tab here, and the other choice that we have is to click on reform government. This is one of the more important ones, actually. Excuse me. This tab is used to redefine what some of the details within your government. Now, it does cost 250 influence to activate, so obviously we can't do that just now, since I only have 27 coming in, since I only have 27 in stock currently. But you can see here what civics we have active. These are the civics that appear up here, but we could choose to remove some of them and reorganize some of the civics that are attached to this government. So we could, for example, become an aristocratic elite, which would reduce government costs, empire leader capacities, etc. But I would be leaving it on environmentalist generally at the moment. This is purely because this is the sort of aims that I had going forwards with this race when I first started playing. But you could also change your authority here, so you could change to democratic elections, which would happen every 10 years. If a ruler was to die in power, then that would instantly create a new election at that point. Currently, we're in an oligarchic authority, which means that every 40 to 50 years you'll have a new ruler. It explains in this section just what that when the next election is actually going to take place. Holds an election upon ruler death to select new ruler. This is the dictatorial ones. The advantage to some of these are that you can see here that there are different civics that become available as you move through. So you could have ruler skill level increases by 2. Meritocracy, leader skill pool goes up, leader pool size, etc. And then there's Philosopher King for your higher level or your imperial ones. And this really just changes around what can be available. Shadow Council here as well is another one that dictatorial allows you to use. The next tab here is your budget. Now this is basically explaining, well, exactly what is going in and out of your society. So you can see that this is all energy credits, and it can be quite useful to see just where everything's coming from. So produced is gained from planets and stations, and it has a little hover box when you move over it here. Module production is coming from space stations. I'll show you one of the stations here at the moment. So if we click on the spaceport tab here, you can see that there are solar panels attached to the space station. This is a research and can be unlocked. If we go to this area here, you can see that these are researched modules that can be attached to each of the stations as you go through. You're allowed 1 upgrade per level of the station, and you can upgrade the station. I believe that all of these stations will actually be maximum level at the moment. They are a maximum level, but there is an option that would sit within here which would allow for additional an upgrade to a station if it's available. You do require a lot of research to be able to unlock each of these as you move forward, so it's not something that you can just do as soon as you start the game. But each of the modules here, you can see, have costs attached to building them. They also have maintenance costs, which you can see just within there. It has the cost, the time to build, and then maintenance, and then shows you the actual modifier that it creates at that point. So we have the energy credits increase here, which is very useful. Okay, back to the main tabs here. Again, we'll go into the budget tab, which sits within your government section. So you can see this is income, outcome is here. Now what will actually happen is if I was to unpause this game and start to move the ships, you would see that this would actually dramatically increase, and the amount of energy that I'm actually producing would also change. I'm actually going to do that at the moment because we have quite a large fleet here that is currently active. So if we start the game and we move this fleet here,
construction complete.
You'll see that there is a massive change here. Now the reason for that is that these ships are no longer in spaceport and would then be required to move back in. We'll see this change in a sec when they go back to the spaceport. The ship maintenance, as you can see, just completely changed there, and that makes a rather large difference to the outgoing costs. When you're running very large fleets later in the game, it can be difficult to manage them all unless you've carefully controlled your energy credit and control earlier on in the game. So you can see the balance there. That is the actual positive that we're making per month. You can also go into the economic effects here. These are based off of the different factors that you have going on in this sort of section. But I believe some buildings and such can also affect that, or research. You can see Fleet Logistics Corps here is a minus 10%. That is a research. We'll get into the research tab very shortly. But this will show your building cost reductions, clear blocker costs, and how much they would cost. Again, this is mostly research based, but might also be based off of events that have happened in the game. The next tab here, demographics. The demographics of this race, because it is it's quite an unusual race because it will only have one species in it. Actually, technically it has 3 species, but it's only because of the way the game categorizes mutations that have existed or have been created, or genetic changes that have occurred. So in this case, there are 3 different Vordexians. Vordexians are the name of the race that I actually created. But you can see there's 3 different types of them. This is because I changed them to allow them to live on different types of planet, and as a result, it categorizes them as different sorts of the same race. But you could have all sorts of different aliens attached in here. It's just not something I can show you within this actual video currently. So we've got all of these here. But you can also see that there's physics output changes, food, mineral increase, and you can see how that's actually changed. So we could click on each of these to see just exactly how they exist. There should be a way to actually do that. This must be as a whole. This shows exactly how many are actually in within each of the, as a percentage, how much each of these populations exists within your people. I thought that there was a way to click on these to actually go into each of them, but I think it only shows the general one. Okay, so moving forward, you've got each of the details here and just what is involved. A new life is a research, as is genome mapping, and there are various other different effects here. So this just helps to pick all of these up at once. And you can also create vassals in here. Now, if you control an alien's homeworld, you can release them as vassals rather than as conquered species, which could be quite good for you. You could, for example, give a player back their species, or you could just split them all, split someone else off if you've perhaps got too many worlds that you're controlling and you're struggling. You could give it back and then move on from there. Okay, the next tab here is contacts. Now this tab is going to be extremely busy at the moment because this is very late in the game. If we zoom out here, you can see that I can see the entire universe really and all the species that are attached to it. There would generally be a lot more species than this, but because some have been wiped out or effects have happened during the game that have changed around some of this stuff. So that's why they're not all around here. If we click on the contacts tab again here, what this allows is you to look at each of the races that are actually around here. So we could click on them and we could check out the details of these other ones that are here. This shows the number of planets they own. It shows their relative strengths to you. It shows their empire population, so that is the number of actual pop they have on all of the planets combined, and their attitude towards us. Diplomatic status sits down here. This represents federations. This is being at war. This is anyone that is a vassal to them. This is trade deals, and you can hover over each of these to see exactly what the trade deal is. Rivals, just who the actual who is a rival of them. So this could help you out by maybe you could rival someone else, and that would make another species like you more. This just makes it quicker than looking through all of the individual races and trying to figure it out from there. And you can see truces here as well. Now, if you want to communicate with them, you just click on that communication tab, and it will bring up the next section here. Clicking X brings you back in. You can also tidy this up a little bit, because as you can see, there's an awful lot of stuff going on here. We'll look at the tabs up here. We could just take each of these out. This shows just empires. This shows your each of them is like an enclave. These enclaves are all kind of bonus things that are bonus species. It's not really a species as such. It's more like a type of people. They live on a small space station, but they can be quite advanced, and they do various things such as the artists can make you. Oh, let's have a look at them. You can commission art pieces. Those art pieces will allow you to create monuments which make your people happier, reduce xenophobia, and increase migration attraction. There are other things that you can do. such as, if we have a look, you become a patron of them, and they can, it costs money, but you get monthly influence gains, and opinion of you can go up for this species. The more opinion you have of them, the better that can, the better stuff that they can actually give you. So you can see that it's different for each of them. Curators are based off of research, and you can get people from them, like this scientist that we have here. This is actually, although I'm a xenophobe, I am allowed to have their scientist here for some reason. But you can see that we could get research bonuses, or we could get various other things from them. So each of these is quite different, and it kind of changes just the way that they... yeah, you can pick them up on this this tab, I should say. Okay, next, primitives. This shows any primitive species that are around the map, and you can click on them just to go down here, and this will show you what the species actually looks like within here. Now they will appear in the race tab, which we will get to soon enough, but that will show you these primitives here. And then lastly, we've got the Fallen Empires tab. This will show any effective super empires that exist, and just where they are on the map. Again, showing the equivalent, showing their relative powers, and the rest of the details there. I can also show you if you're at war with them, and such as that. In this case, we are actually at war with this guy at the moment. As I say, this is quite late game, so yeah, it can be that is how that's happened. Okay, the next tab is situation log. Now the reason this is one of the reasons that I'd chosen this late game playthrough, is to allow you to see these situation logs. Now they have all sorts of different things that can happen. In this case, this is the precursor chain. Every game you play, you'll have a precursor civilization that you'll meet, which you'll be able to look at their stuff and research it, and be able to find bonuses and such. And this helps to categorize it. You could click on track on the map, and that would allow, if we have a look here, I'll pop out just now. And you could click, I could click on this and then click track on map, and it can highlight the area. This is probably it here, yes. So you can see it just highlights when we click that, and that just shows you that it's that it basically can mean that you are paying attention to that area more. It will remind you that it's there, and that can be quite useful. You can have it off if you aren't too worried about it. Like perhaps you might not have a scientist that's level 5 yet and you don't care about it, or it might be that your scientists are busy doing other things and you don't want this flashing away constantly. But so you can hide that if you want to. It will also show you things like alien species. This is again another mission which will show up as the track map things. When you complete these fully, you can get bonuses out of them. When one of the endgame events happens, it will keep track of that within here. So you can see here that the Unbidden have come into this game, which is a sort of powerful race that have came in from another dimension, and it shows you the details of how many you fought against, what they did, that sort of thing. And then you've got your situation log update details here, such as things that you can investigate with scientists, and or if a new race has been found and you need to go in and click on the research details there to find out more information on them. So that's the situation log, and just what it can do. Next we move on to, we'll zoom out here, let's click on technology. Now technology screen has a little bit more to it here. You will show the research that you're actually producing or working towards in each of these three categories, which is quite nice for you. The shows the scientist that is actually that is doing each of these along the left hand side, and if you click on this you can actually move in to the scientist leader screen, which will automatically take you to, which we will get to shortly, and you will be able to pick other people that are assigned there. So you could say, are you sure you wish to reassign the leader from here because they're busy doing something else? So you might want to quickly change some around. I use this fairly regularly, this screen, or the transition screen here, when a scientist has died that was quite a high level, that was working on the research screen, then you might want to take someone that is out doing exploration out around the map, and if they're a high level, then move them into the research tab so that you've got faster research coming in, because it does actually matter that the level that your person is, and perhaps they've got a desirable trait here that will help out the speed of the research and help you to move forward into the end game. So the stars here show just how strong your people can actually be at research and how much bonus they give, and it can be quite good to have a higher level leader taking part in that. You've also got your research progress here. You can see the bonuses that are attached to each of that. So technological assistance is this one, I think. No, sorry, it's from something else. Discovery, traditions finished. Research Institute, sentient AI is this here, I believe. Oh no, sorry, that's more research. The administrative AI is this one, I believe. Custom AI assistant. There we are. Eventually found it. So you can see that there's various different bonuses that come from each of these. You can click on the researched tab to show research that you've actually taken, that you've actually done during the game. This can just be quite good to see if you've lost track of something somewhere. You might be able to just find it and say, oh yeah, I did research that. So it's always useful to kind of go down through that if you want to, and kind of see the stuff that you've done already. It might remind you of a plan if you're reloading a game or something like that. And you can see that there's a tab for each of these, for each of the different types of research. So you've got your society, your physics, engineering tab, etc, etc. So we can close that off there. This shows the actual research, and you can hover over each of the parts to show what the actual research will be. And this little bit here just shows that science's applied algorithmics, which would basically mean that if this coincides with what one of your leaders has, then you'll get a bonus attached to it. In the case of this guy, he just naturally gets a large research bonus, but it might be that you've got, I'll see if any leaders here have the details. This person, for example, is very good at Voidcraft, so would gain a 10% research bonus for working with Voidcraft. This one naturally just has a plus 5% bonus to all. This one has a 15%, I believe, but this is because it's a special guy. He is because he's one of the curators. And then we've got the natural 5% bonus. So you want to generally try and find researchers that are good at the particular types down here, and move them forward on that. Okay, if you want to click on if you've started a research and you decide you want another one that you have an option to pick out of from the cards that have appeared, then you could click on the little set of arrows here, which would allow you to pick up a new research again and slot that into the place. Okay, that is all for this screen. We're now going to go into the pull down menu. Now some of these have F keys attached to them, as do these ones over here. I don't believe they can be changed, although I haven't looked into it too much myself because I'm very used to the way that this is set up. But we'll move into the planets and sectors section now. Now this shows you a rundown of all the planets that you have here, and on the right hand side there you can see if it actually has a space station created. If it doesn't have a space station, then it will appear blank like this section here. Now this is a habitat which I don't believe can have access to a station. No, it doesn't. It's not allowed it. But you would be able to you'd be able to just check quickly if there's a station around a planet by going into there, which can be very useful. So you can click on whoops, click back in here. This shows you the number of pops that are within each of the areas. Again, these are Verdexians and Verdexians. Now it's important to remember that these are that my race has been genetically modified, so that's why they are appearing twice. Some are arid preference. You might be able to see within, I think it's 4 down from the top. You can see arid preference, and then you can see savanna preference there. and basically they have all the other traits attached to them because I've made them the same way. But you can go into them there. So again, that just shows each of these. If you want to click on the planet itself, it will actually bring up the details here for that. But it will not bring you back into this tab, unfortunately, when you close the other one. So you'll have to find the tab again here and just click on it, or press F5 for the hotkey. This just again gives you a rundown, so it shows you the planet size, how much food it's producing, the actual other details that it's producing. So that's your energy, your minerals, your influence, physics, society, and engineering research. This picture here represents whether there's a governor attached. You could click on that and that would take you through to the governor tab, and you could either recruit governors if you wanted there, or just pick one out of the list. Sadly, again, it does not pull you back to that planets and sectors when it's done there. And I think that's pretty much all this screen does from this perspective. So that's each of these parts here. Now, the other thing that it does do, though, is it allows you to create sectors. Now, sectors are used to basically control your planets in a slightly different way. You have a limit on these sectors, which basically means that you're allowed to have up to 4 in this case separated out. Now, what they are used for is basically I'll make one quickly here just to show you. You could take one here, and you could start to add various systems that you own to it that are all connected. So I could connect out here and here, and if I wanted, I could create a small line over this area to just scoop up these planets. And we'll take that and we'll make that a sector just now, just to show it. Now, when you make a sector, it takes all the details there of the sector and it pushes it down into this other section. And what it does is it shows you just exactly what this sector is producing in the case of like research and such. It shows you the number of colonies that are attached to it, the sector colony size there. So it's a combined size there. That is the number of population that are actually there. And then there is this focus tab. Sector colony pops. Yeah, that shows that there. Now, sector settings. You click on this tab here and it will let you set up what the AI is going to be doing, which in this case is a balanced focus as standard. The sector will balance its production of food, minerals, energy credits and research, but you could change that around to either mostly produce food. You could set, and the AI will basically focus on that. You can have industrial focus, research focus, or financial focus, which is energy credits. You can also tell the AI whether it's allowed to build military stations, space construction, so that it would start to use build construction ships and then send them out to start to exploit an area. You can set it so that it will try and colonize other planets within that area, which will basically allow you to build up without having to pay attention to it and automate the game a little bit for you. Respect tile resources. Now that would be in the case of, if we click on this tile here, it would naturally produce engineering research, but it's been turned around a little bit here so that I built this building here, which allows us to produce energy. But if we had that tile, if we had that option, whoops, just click on this again. If we had that tile active, then that would mean that, or this tick active, then it would mean that it would only be allowed to produce research on that tile that would allow it to use the engineering research. Redevelopment allows the AI to strip the buildings that you've already set up on a planet, and it will start to try and build it towards the focus that you have set up within the tab here. And you can also tell it whether it will be allowed to build robots or not. The robots, it's not something that I use a lot of, but I know that some other players do use it, and it's a favourite of theirs. So there's an option there for that. The thing about robots is that they do cost quite a bit of energy, so you know, it's something that you need to take into account when allowing the AI to do its stuff. Now let's go to the tabs here. you've got the sector contribution. What it will do is, as it automates and it starts to build up, you can effectively tax the sector so that you will be able to steal a certain amount of stuff coming out of it. So sector currently is not supplying us with any energy credits at minerals, focusing on internal growth instead. But as we click on this, you've got 25%, 50%, 75%, and then off. And that's your choices. So effectively, as a cost of expanding a lot and getting to a stage where your directly controlled planets ends up too high, and you start getting penalties for controlling too many planets yourself, you are effectively stripped down with these sectors, so that you're not gaining as much. Now, I tend to play this game in such a way that you will not, I won't use sectors. I'll tend to just have a number of sectors under my control that I can control directly, and I'll not advance beyond that if possible. But that's only because I don't like the sector mechanic. It might be something that is quite good in the future, but I think that currently it's not optimized properly, and I don't like to use it as a result of that. So that is sectors. You can also click on the manage sector button here, and you can remove systems from each of these sectors. However, this does cost 25 influence to do, so I can't actually remove this from this currently, because I could remove one of these sectors only, and then that would be me, because I don't have enough influence to control that. So we'll just click close there just now. Okay. That is all of this tab covered, so we'll move on to the policies and edicts. Now, this is quite an important tab, as it does change quite a lot about the game and the way that you can go through it. There are two sections to it. You've got the policies here, you've got your edicts down in this section. So firstly, you've got war philosophies. War philosophies are either unrestricted liberation, or defensive wars. Unrestricted wars allows you to do any sort of attack that you want. So you could vassalize someone, you could capture their planets, you could open borders, humiliate them, all the other choices that you have for actually having a war with someone. Just to show you exactly how what that screen looks like, we could go to the war section down here. So you can see you've got humiliate, you've got open borders, seeding planets. There will be more in here. There'll be a liberating planets, which we can get into maybe in another video. Cleansing planets, which is available because I'm playing as a xenophobe empire, which that will kill all the people on the planets and destroy all the buildings, and will leave it empty so that it can be repopulated later. Again, all of these are available, and it's effectively color coded to what each of them do. So red tends to be what's the word for it? Let's bring it back up again. Red tends to be for your aggressive actions. Your liberation ones are in green, or could also be orange, and your defensive ones, defensive wars is something different completely. It basically stops you attacking someone directly, unless you're taking back areas that you have controlled previously. But we'll get into that in a sec. So your unrestricted wars allows you to do all the choices that are available in the game. As I said earlier, like vassalization or capturing opponents' planets. Liberation wars, if you have this tab active, then your people don't like to actively attack people and steal their planets. Instead, you will be allowed to liberate or humiliate or open borders, but a lot of the other options will be removed from you. And in the case of defensive wars, wars of aggression are forbidden, and conquest war goals may only be used against previously owned planets. So you can retake, as I say, areas that you control, and that is it. Food stockpiling. Now, keeping our food stockpiles at a minimum ensures that we can be put to better use towards population growth. How this tab actually works is, if we go up here, you can see that there's a stored food section, which effectively means that it will give you more leeway if your food supplies run out at any point. So if you're doing a lot of shifting around of people, or you go to war and your people become unhappy and start producing less, then that can cause issues and kind of open up different parts, different options there. What I like to run this in the 1000 category just to give me more leeway, but you might want to have it on the 200, which it starts at, just because once this tab is actually active or full, once your food stores are actually full, then you will start to produce, you'll get extra growth on each of your planets. So you can see here, I don't think I have any on this planet. Let me see if I've got a planet that is half empty here. I think at this stage in the game, most of these planets will be full, because I don't think that I've expanded any time soon with this group. No, unfortunately they're all full. Even the habitat will be full currently. But you would see that there's a growth statistic down here, and it is it's boosted by having the maximum food store. So that's something that you can use to your advantage. And again, each of these sections, so your minimal basically means that you will quickly be able to increase your growth. The balance would mean that you would have a large stockpile of food just in case something happened, like a large war. But it would take longer to fill up, and therefore you would not be able to use your growth as much. And then you've got your large section here, which is just a lot of food in case, again, a really bad war happens and you lose planets and end up in a kind of death spiral for your people. Orbital bombardment, which changes the different types of attack that you're allowed to do when bombing a planet. So light will mean that we need to actually go to, we need to click on the actual ships here just to go over this. But you've got ground support. Light stance will cause 0.3 damage to the planet's fortification each day, multiplied by the supporting fleet size. Also has the following effects: defending armies will not regenerate health, 5% chance each month that a population is killed. Now I will not be able to upgrade this much at the moment because I haven't changed that around, but if we click on limited stat here, then go back to our people here, we can now choose limited. So limited allows for 0.4 damage to the planet's fortification each day, multiplied by the supporting fleet size yet again. But you can see that it's changed now to defending armies will not regenerate, populations will not work under it, which is more disruptive to the people that you're attacking. But there's a 10% chance each month that a population is killed, and you can also end up destroying buildings. Now that can be a bad thing because it can upset other civilizations. It considers it a nasty thing that's happened, and you can get lasting effects on your civilization as a result of it. So it can be good to use the light bombardment, or you may wish to be more aggressive. It's really up to you on the approach of the people. And that's what a lot of these these policies really are. It's personal choice and just how you would mess around with them. In this case, full is not available to me because it's only available to militarists or fanatic militarists. But it basically does more of the same. You're more likely to kill people, you're more likely to blow up buildings, and you do extra damage. Native interference. You've got your passive studies here. So that, if we click on, I don't think I have any primitives controlled within my civilization, but if we click over here, you can see that there are various different choices when you put one of these observation stations above a primitive species. And this will just show you the different effects. So this is passive observation. It does depend on what your ethics are. So if you have passive study active, then you can only use passive study within this observation station, which would mean that you would gain 3 society research per turn. If you were more aggressive in your research, you could have aggressive observation. So again, if we just bring this up, active study would allow Observation station can perform most types of study, cannot invade native worlds. So that would allow you for the aggressive observation here, which would mean that you've got get 6 society research. And then you would need active native study here to use indoctrination. You can see in the choices there, you cannot be a hive mind, you have to have active native studies, and has policy unrestricted native studies. Sorry, that's unrestricted you would have for that one. But this basically allows you to do active studies, so you could do this here. And there, you would need unrestricted for these. Now, going to unrestricted, you basically are able to completely influence these other races, and you'll be able to do things such as indoctrination, which means that you can change them to your way of thinking and raise the civilization up. You can have technological enlightenment to allow them to move to the space age. It speeds up basically. So you quickly bring a race to such a level that they can actually take part within the grander scheme of things within the universe. Oh, where are we? And covert infiltration allows you to effectively draw them up and then make them vassals of yourself, and they can think highly of you in the process as well at that. So, there we are. That is native interference and how that works. Native enlightenment. This is being able to change a race. Now, in this case, this race is a primitive civilization, but they sit here on the map and you can actually see them. There are also I can't remember the word for them, but they're it's like sentient races. So you could find like 8 people or something on a planet, and they are Stone Age or something like that. And what you can do with that is you can have this native enlightenment, which will allow you to start moving them towards the same level that you can, so you can eventually make them like Iron Age and etc., and move forwards at that. And that's what this ethic is all about, whether you're allowed to actually do this or not. I'm not allowed to do it because this is a fanatic xenophobe race, but other races may want to do that just to bring extra races into the game and play around with them at that point. Resettlement. Policy controls whether or not we are allowed to forcibly relocate pops between planets. So if we go to this tab here, we will be able to click on, now where are we? Here, and then we can click on resettle, and that would mean that we could start to move people between planets, and that is just a pull down list there of what's happening on them. So yeah, it's quite that's your relocation, fairly straightforward on that one. Leader enhancements, whether your people are natural or whether you can with research have stuff like selected lineages, so you can see that the people cost extra influence to create at that point, but they live longer and they gain more experience, which can be quite useful. Leader enhancement will generally be off at the start of the game because no one has selected lineages until later on. First contact protocol. When you first meet aliens, whether you are allowed to attack them straight off the bat or whether they can be peaceful. Now, if you're looking to have any kind of negotiations with people, you generally want to be set to peaceful to begin with, but militarists are allowed to be aggressive, and so are xenophobes, I believe. Okay. Artificial intelligence. This controls how robots are controlled within your civilization. So you can either have them as outlawed and you're not allowed to build them, servitude where they're going to be slaves of your people no matter what, or you can set them up to have citizen rights. This is only really relevant once you get to the third level of research for robots. If we bring up that tab, we'll be able to have a look at this. I think that I actually have them within this section. Just try and find them here. It says synthetics or something they're called. Yeah, synthetics here. So they have artificial intelligence, and they have an opinion themselves and can be quite upset if you force them to stay as slaves. So that's something that you need to watch out for, and that can trigger different endgame events as a result of it. Okay, moving on here. Pre-sentience. Tolerate pre-sentience. Or exterminate pre-sentience. That is if you land on one of the planets that have them. Then, and this is actually as well relevant to the native enlightenment that I was talking about. This is the pre-sentience that you can enlighten. You can, when you have these people, you can either tolerate them and live on the same planet as them, or you can just wipe them out. Having them there on the planet has various different options, and you can research them, or you might let them grow around the planet and do their own thing. Again, this is all choice. Core world populations, you can set it so that all species are allowed to live. Citizens and slaves are only allowed to live there, or only citizens are allowed to live there. Again, that is personal preference about how you would like to run your actual civilization itself. Refugees. Now, when wars start to happen and people get displaced, you can set it up so that you can allow them to come into your worlds and live there, or you can say that they are not allowed to. That can make them happy with you. It can diversify your people and give you advantages, but it's a very personal preference. In the case of this race that I have, they would not allow that. Slavery is just literally whether they are allowed or not allowed. And purging is whether you're allowed to wipe out people. So you're either not allowed to kill them, you are not allowed to kill them, but you push them out and you force them to become refugees, which can be picked up by other races, or you're allowed to just straight up kill them. In the case of my people, they are allowed to kill them. And then we go on to edicts. Edicts cost you per month a natural influence bonus up here, or your influence cost up here. And they do lots of different things. So government ethics attraction here is one of them, which will basically mean that people are more likely to go towards your government type. We can look at that a little bit later, I think. You've got your encourage free thought, which forces people away from your government ethics but increases research. Map the stars in this case is survey speed increases and anomaly chance discovery goes up. Physics research grants is an interesting one. These ones basically change the way that your research works, so it makes it less likely to get, or it makes it slower to get engineering and society research, but your physics would go up. Now what that does is if we bring up the research tab here, it would change these percentages here so that you'd be faster at getting one of these at the expense of the other two. And it can be quite important at some stages if you're desperate for example, to get battleships because you know the opponent has them and you don't. So you can focus your research specifically so that you would be more like you'd be faster at getting those, but at the expense of your other ones. And so on and so forth with these. Now, the only ones that are available naturally, I believe, are the physics, society, and engineering research, and then I think information quarantine and encourage free thought are also there. But the others here are based off of research, and you'll not have these to begin with as a result. So yes, enforces rotating tasks and work schedules for indentured servants. So that's a slavery-based one, and that is a research that got that, as is the Grand Fleet, etc., etc. So that is these the two tabs here. The only other thing that this has here is edict cost. So that is your costs down this side. This has been reduced by some of the research that I have, and then you've got the edict's duration, which can be increased again by various different traits and whatnot. Okay. Factions. This is actually the factions tab. Might look very similar to your contacts tab, but factions are are new to the game. They only came in this recent patch. They basically show the people that are attached to each of your areas and the kind of ethics that they enjoy. So in this case, you've got Closed Border Association, which is where most of these people are sitting. And you can see that there are bonuses and negatives attached to each of these. down this side. So these are the issues that they kind of move towards. In this case, this person here is the leader of this group. You can see that there is this amount of attraction, and this is the happiness that is kind of based off of it. So this is how happy this actual faction is at the moment, and they might give different bonuses depending on that. So for example, they affect happiness by, as long as you have 3,000 or more energy inside your pool, you'll get 5% happiness increase to all people that are attached to this faction. Controlling at least 5 strategic resources will please these people. So again, this basically just changes happiness. No effects currently, but controlling at least 10 strategic resources would make them happier again. Traditional prosperity, adopting any tradition emphasizing prosperity. We'll get to the traditions tab eventually. And then these ones, development requires stability, not engaging in warfare. They are unhappy if you're at war. Now you could go through each of these and you can change stuff about. So you've got these. Basically, you can see how happy they are, and if you're actually ticking the boxes on them as well. This is the general happiness of the actual people at the moment. So that's the overall. So overall, these people sit at 55% happiness naturally. That's the cat jumping up, I'm afraid. Sorry for the noise if you can hear it. And you can see that these people are less happy just because I'm doing less of the things that make them keen on that. Up at the top here, you can see just how many people of each of the different types actually live within my civilization or my planets. So you can see that most of the 62% of the people are xenophobes, 28% are militarists, and 10% are pacifists. So there's actually quite a few militarists inside my pacifist government at the moment, which could become a problem if the ethics change too much and they become extremely unhappy. This also shows that you can get extra influence based off of the types of people and just what's there. Now, if we click on Manage Factions here, you can set it up so that you can embrace a faction, although it does cost influence to do that. What that does is it completely changes your government type, and it shows you just what you'll actually turn into on the right hand side there. So they would shift towards xenophobe in that case. Now, because my people are xenophobes currently, it would mean that they would become fanatic xenophobes. So it would probably change my ethics type from, if we just check over here again in the government tab, it would change to, in fact we are fanatic xenophobes at the moment, so that wouldn't really have much effect to us. In fact, I think we actually are this government type at the moment. The other thing that we can do is suppress, which reduces monthly influence, because you're having to spend your influence to remove them, to make the people undesirables. But xenophobe ethics attraction would be pushed away from this people, so they would try and move over to one of the other ethics and live there, or one of the other governing types and try and live there, or faction types I should say. There's another option that appears within these, so the Banner of Triumph here, you can promote a faction. Now what promoting a faction does is it would mean that more people would start to lean towards that way of thinking, and would give them a bit more traction, and then they would try and they would probably try and transition over into that type eventually. So in the case of these people, they would try to move towards militaristic thinking. So they would stop becoming pacifists in this case, and they would start to become militarists, which would change the way that my civilization was allowed to be played at that point. So you could start off as a pacifist, for example, decide that you don't want to be a pacifist anymore because there's too many people expanding around you, and you could change to militarists and attack them directly. So this screen is basically about changing your mind in the way that you want to play during the game, and being able to do that accordingly in here. And it can be quite a useful one as a result of it. We'll click on to the next one here. This one is fairly straightforward. It just shows you the strategic resources and the number of them that you have within your borders. So within each of the areas here, if we go down to this section, you can see that the dust that I have here, this plus 10% food output, is on this system here. So if I was to lose this system, then this would disappear out of my strategic resources tab here. But if you've got more than one of these, you can go in and trade with people and have various different choices there. So that's a really straightforward one. Clicking on to species now. So this will show you either Empire species, which are just these 3 different types of Verdexian in this case, or we can set it to Galaxy species. Now, you could then, once you've clicked on this, you could see just all the details of each of the species, the traits that are attached to each of them, and you can click on your little button here, which is a go-to button, which will take you to the species home world. In the case of, we go to Verdexians here, I think these were my natural ones, so that will take me straight to my home world here, Verdexia. And again, if you click on one of them, it unfortunately pulls you out here. But you can see any other details that are attached to each of them. This shows you that there's robots that exist out in the civilization, so like all the universe somewhere. I've seen robots at some point. And you can get to find out all the details here. Now, what this tab here shows is it shows the number of populations that exist of that actual species. It shows you how many genetic modification points they have there. You can select rights for the civilizations. For the species. So you could have them as full citizens, or you could set them up as slaves. You could set them as undesirables so that you can just eat them or purge them or whatever. You need to have various different things controlled to do a lot of these, and it is very heavily based off of your government type, what you are allowed to do and not allowed to do. And some of them are also research based, such as your chemical bliss. You need a specific research to be able to do that. So you've got lots of different choices in here. You can set it so that they cannot have full military service, or they can have full military service. Colonization rights, whether they're allowed to recolonize other planets or not. So that in this case they would not be allowed to board colony ships and head out to new worlds. Population controls, whether they are enabled or not. Prevents pops of the species from growing their population. Basically, you can deactivate that. In this case, I would not be allowed to because they are my resident species. But if I had multiple species within my borders, I could limit the way that they're allowed to expand. For example, if someone has a very undesirable species that is repugnant, for example, and is really horrible to live around, then you might not want them moving out into all your areas. And you can stop that as a result of it. Migration, yeah, that's your migration controls are just whether you allow people to naturally migrate or not. If you set that to enabled, then they'll be free to run backwards and forwards as they see fit. And then you've got slavery types. I don't have any slaves, so I can't show this. And purge types are the types of removal that you can do of that species from your borders. If we click on modify here, now you can't normally do this. This is a very late game tech thing that you can do. You can modify the species to allow them to live on different planets. So this would change, this is each of the planets. You could highlight which ones you want, and that would allow you to choose the different places that your people are going to, or the different planets that you want the species to be modified from. And you could change the general one that is used as this planet preference here. So your arid race that would normally live on hot worlds could actually be changed so that they live on cold worlds, like tundra worlds or arctic worlds. And that just means that you're able to expand faster and move out to different areas. The other advantage though is that you can change around any bonuses or negatives that you have, any bonus or negative traits. You could remove some traits and you could add other ones in that are more desirable in the process. So that can help you out. So you could make your people happier, for example, or you could make them stronger so they produce more minerals, so on and so forth. There's lots of changes that you can do. And you can do that to any species that lives within your borders. And that's all done through the Modify tab. It shows the research that it will cost down here. So it is always society research, and it's very expensive depending on the number of people that you're changing. And it can change, basically once you do this, it will create a new situation log here, and you'll choose that within this section, and you'll be able to swap them around at that. So it'll come up as a research, and then that will supersede any research that's going on in the society research section at that. Okay, leaders tab. This shows you your governors, scientists, admirals, generals. Click on that and you can hire up new people if you have the cost. This is the cost here. This is the level that they'll be brought in at. This is the age that they are. And then you've got the traits here. So this guy is cheaper. This one lives longer. This one is better at managing slaves. Once you've hired these people, you can go into each of the areas. So planet summary, you can change your governor in here. You could hire a governor to go onto the planet. In the research tab, you can hire your people, put them in here, or you could put them onto science ships. I don't think I have it. Oh, I do have science ships. So there's scientists that live out in the ships. You could hire them up here, plop them into those sections. You can also have your fleet admirals that sit here that give bonuses. So you can see that each level of here is giving higher fire rate, but there's also traits attached such as monthly hull regeneration, ship upgrade, ship upkeep reduction, or sensor ranges and sublight speed movement. And then if we go to armies, you can see that I've got a leader of charge here. He is naturally giving these army health, damage, and upkeep reduction points, but he's also got invader, so he's very good at attacking, and he lives longer. And you've got your whether you're allowed to land the army, all that sort of thing. So that is basically all that the leader tab controls. It also shows you here your maximum leaders and how many you're using, so you might end up at cap and you can't actually hire any more. So that might be why you can't do that. If you get to that stage and you have excess in an area and you decide you don't want them anymore, you can click on the dismiss leader section and that will just let you get rid of them. Remember that if you are using that on a research, then that might be an issue where you would have to pop someone else down in their space instead, or you could get massive minuses to the actual research that you're producing. Traditions is new to this newest expansion, or newest update, and that is effectively like the Civilization 5 tradition system. They do various things such as give bonuses to different parts of the game, so your colonies will start with extra additional population, for example, or when you take over when you subjugate another empire and take some of their people into your civilization through war or whatever, then the war demand costs can go down. You can get you can get cheaper stations, and you can get various other bonuses such as decreased buildings costs and ship costs, ship upkeep reductions, that sort of thing. Harmony is all based off of happiness and reduction in unrest. Supremacy is about ship build speeds, naval capacity increases, having less cost to go to war and try and capture areas. Army damage increases, that sort of thing. And then you could get unity output increased by neighbouring rivals, that sort of thing. So that's actually quite a nice one. Diplomacy is about creating federations and keeping federations, or doing more with a federation, such as gaining unity bonuses or effects and that sort of thing. And this is actually what unity is all about. So this came in at the same time as the traditions, and it's basically like a sort of fifth thing that you need, or sixth, I should say, thing that you need to keep track of. Because you've got your energy, minerals, your food, your influence, then you've got your 3 different types of research that I'll categorise under one, and then you've got unity there. So that's everything that you have to keep track of as you go forwards, which is quite a lot. This is quite a difficult game to kind of get your head around to begin with. So yeah, unity is generally produced from, if we click on each of these areas here, it is generally produced from each of the capitals, or the capitals that you have in each of the areas. So each of your planets will have a capital that will produce, where are we? This here will produce unity. You can also build these monuments that will produce unity. And there's various other buildings and such that you can get that will also produce unity, such as this visitor center or a symbol of unity. And in the case of the civics that I bought, that I chose for this race, remember the civics are within this government tab here. You can see that my farms will also produce unity, so that's quite a big bonus to my types of people. So you can see here that +1 unity from having this farm here, which is quite a big deal for my people. I find it quite useful to have as a result. Okay, so that is the traditions. Now the important thing about these traditions is that you will have a bonus just for unlocking it to begin with. Your first point will be to adopt a tradition. You can see that there's an adoption effect. So in this case, new colonies start with +1 additional pop. And then all these will be greyed out. You will then start to build them up as you go. So capital buildings now produce an additional unity. For the purposes of colonising and building frontier outpost systems count as being half the regular distance away. There's various different things. But the important part is that once you complete one of these full sections, you'll get an ascension perk. Now ascension perks, if we click in here, are kind of super bonuses that are given to you as you go forwards in the game. So you can see there's quite a few of them, even though I've got most of them, I've got quite a few unlocked at the moment. In this case, I'd picked up Mastery of Nature, which allowed for effectively free removal of all tile blockers without having to bother with the research, which is quite a big deal because it means that you're spending a lot less time worrying about it, about colonising new planets and whether you can actually remove the tile blockers there. And was quite good for my race because I was expanding quickly in the early stages of the game. So that was a big help to me to get that. But it could also do other things such as research speed increases, a massive 200 bonus to your naval capacity, genetic modification reductions and allowing you to change your people, being able to build habitats, having bonuses to fight against the endgame event enemies, and also eventually being able to build stuff like ring worlds or your mega structures that are in the game. So traditions do a lot of different things. I would suggest having a look at them rather than me covering every single one of these here. They do change the way that you can kind of choose how to play the game, but it is personal preference really which one you would want to go through. But do remember that every time you complete one of these full tabs here, you will get an ascension perk. So from what I've seen, a lot of people focus on one to begin with and will just complete that entire section and then move on to the next one afterwards. Okay. So, we've not got many to go here. These will be relatively quick to go through. The expansion planner basically shows you all planets that your people are able to go to. And it will show you the benefits that they get, or the bonuses and negatives from going to each of them. So, this one has an asteroid belt, for example. You can see that this is we'll go through each of these actually. You can click on this to go straight to the area that you want. That will show you the planet. Very nice. Unfortunately, we'll close off the tabs, so do remember that. And by clicking on the top here, you can also actually see the different planet classes and what they're like and how likely you are to be able to live there. So you can sort by habitability. You can sort by name, size, cost, the amount of food or whatever that they're each naturally able to produce. However, you can see here that you've got your habitability, you've got the influence cost that it will actually take to colonise there. So I would never be able to colonise pretty much anywhere at the moment because I just have such poor influence. But yeah, you've got control over all these areas to see the sort of stuff that's going on there. You've also got you can check the status of it, which is whether you've seen more enemies there before and that sort of thing. If we click down here, it's probably a space station in orbit or something. Oh, there's an extra dimensional armada in this area, or there was at one point, which could be a problem. So yeah, that's your expansion planner. This is very handy, I find. I think there's a button that appears here that you can set it whether it's surveyed or not, whether it's colonizable, and then you've got what types of race you can have that will live on each of them. So you can have a look and see where the Vordexians could land, for example, and you could set it so that it only finds 100% habitability, makes it easier to categorise and go through all the bits and pieces on it, so on and so forth. It's useful to set it to about 40 generally, because then you're able to land on the planet if you want to, but you still get to see a lot of planets, so that if you've got lots of different types of people, then you can have them all sort of kept track of at once. But I find this quite a useful screen in the early stages of the game anyway, just to keep track of areas that are very nice to land on. As you get to later stages, you can see that there's way too many planets here. It's very difficult to keep track of them, and I tend to just find planets nearby that I want to live on. So, like if I was looking around for a new planet, I would go, okay, let's have a look here. Yeah, this looks okay, or I like the look of this planet, so I'll live there now. That sort of thing. I prefer to do it in the later stages of the game. But early on, when you've only got about 3 or 4 choices, it can be good to have them all laid out in front of you rather than go, okay, let's have a look at this system, and now, let's have a look at this system. That sort of thing. So, that is basically the end of that tab. And then I think the last tab is your ship designer. Now, the ship designer is fairly detailed actually. You go through each of these sections and you can click on the tab up here and you can change the types of section that you have. Now, a lot of these will not be available early in the game. So like if we go to the battleship, for example, this isn't even available at the start of the game. But you can see here that you can change different parts of the ship. So you could have like an extra large mount here, you could have a huge part, so it would have a hangar bay in it. You could have large, medium or small, and it gives you various different choices about how you would want to fight against opponents. So if the opponent is using mostly corvettes, for example, you might want to set up this one so that you can fight against the smaller ships on that, because the large weapons generally don't hit them. And you've got each of those slots individually set up so that you can put different weapon systems on. And if we click on the weapon systems there, you can see all the different choices here of weapons that can fit into each of those slots. So yeah, that is how that part works. Now, the important thing to take account of here is I'm going to click on one of these and it will clear everything out. But we have an extra large here. But do remember that it's not just this section that you're changing when you do that. It also changes your utility slot that goes along with each of them. So you can see here we've got 2 large, 2 auxiliary, but actually they're all in this case the same size. But it might be that there are different parts that are attached to each of these. I think in general they're about the same, but there might be 1 or 2 that are slightly different in the case of utility slots. But yeah, it will clear out everything in these areas, so do keep track of that. I'm going to click on this again just to show you again. There we go, it's all set up again. So, you've got your production, how much it costs, how long it will take to build, your maintenance, power, hull points, this is your hit points, this is what the ship will actually be like, and that takes into account all the different sections here. You can rename it, and you've got your different drive systems here, what you can put onto it. If you've researched, I started with warp drive in this game. So mostly I'm restricted to warp drive, but I could potentially pick up another drive system. In this case I picked up jump drives later on because I find them really useful. This is your shields, or it's your combat computers and just what's involved in that. You can see here that the weapon damage goes up with the advanced combat computers, but again that changes based off of research. Again, this is research based, but you can have different types of thruster, etc. that are attached. And you've got each of your different types of scanner as well. Now, keep track of this power here. When I shift these around, you'll see that it does change the power output here. You want to have this at least at 0. If you go over, if it's below 0, you will not be allowed to build the ship, and the save function will disappear here. But you basically just pick your thing here. Now, I always use this filter by slot size. Because it makes it much easier to keep track of, but you could click on a large here and you can go through and see all the bits that are attached there. If I don't have that clicked, then it would have these advanced afterburners, for example, sitting here, which I'm not allowed to use in these slots, which is just, it can be annoying and confusing at times when there's a lot of stuff. So yeah, that just shows what's allowed to be popped into each of the sections. So, you're looking to generally have your power supplies set up just in such a way that you're most efficient, while still being able to use various other different pieces attached to it as well. Apologies for the cut here, I did lose my voice during the last part of the recording there. We had basically finished all the details though, so I hope that the tab walkthrough has been useful to you all. If you found it helpful, to hit the like button. If you've not enjoyed it, then hit the dislike button and please put a comment as to why, because it's really helpful for me to going forwards and learning how to do better quality YouTube stuff. I do stream regularly on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/combat_bunny. It's BUNNEE. And I hope to see you all for the next video. So thank you, take care, and goodbye.